وحد صفوفها وألف بين قلوبها وردها إليك ردا جميلا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد واجزه عنا خير ما جازيت نبيا عن أمته. اللهم واحشرنا في زمرته وأوردنا حوضه. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. ربنا إننا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا إن حالنا لا يخفى عليك وهذا ذلنا ظاهر بين يديك، والمسلمون عبيدك وبنو عبيدك وحملة كتابك وأتباع رسولك وحبيبك محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام، بعطفك ولطفك ورحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ارحم أمة محمد رحمة شاملة تعز فيها أولياءك وتنصر جندك وأحباءك وتذل فيها أعداءك وأعداء دينك وشريعتك وكتابك العظيم. اللهم إنا نسألك باسمك الأعظم الذي إذا دعيت به أجبت وإذا سئلت به أعطيت، وأن تكشف عنا كروبنا وتغفر ذنوبنا وتقضي حاجاتنا وتجمع شملنا وتصلح أمورنا، فأنت المرتجى. تباركت أسماؤك وتقدست صفاتك ولا إله غيرك ولا معبود سواك. اللهم خذ بأيدينا حتى نعود إليك عودا حميدا، لا ناصر لنا سواك ولا معز لنا غيرك ولا طريق لنا غير صراطك المستقيم وشرعك العظيم وكتابك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من حال أهل النار من المنافقين والكافرين والفجار. اللهم أحسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها وأجرنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. اللهم أعنا ولا تعن علينا وانصرنا على من بغى علينا. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولجميع المسلمين الأحياء منهم والميتين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا. اللهم إنا نسألك رحمة من عندك تهدي بها قلوبنا وتجمع بها أمرنا وتلم بها شعثنا وترفع بها شاهدنا وتحفظ بها غائبنا وتزكي بها أعمالنا وتلهمنا بها رشدنا وتعصمنا بها من كل سوء يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك الرضا بالقضاء ونزل الشهداء وعيش السعداء والنصر على الأعداء. اللهم هب لنا قلوبا تقية نقية من الشرك، وهب لنا قلوبا سليمة خاشعة ضارعة إليك. اللهم املأ قلوبنا بنورك الذي لا يخفو وطهرها من الرجس والشرك والنفاق والشقاق وسوء الأخلاق، ولا تجعل للشيطان علينا سبيلا. اللهم إنا نسألك رحمة من رحماتك وعطية من عطياتك، وارزقنا من فضلك واكفنا شر خلقك، واحفظ علينا ديننا وصحة أبداننا، وانظر إلينا بعينك التي لا تنام. اللهم اكشف عنا من البلاء ما نعلم وما لا نعلم، واغفر لنا ما أنت به أعلم، ونسألك من خير ما تعلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما تعلم، ونستغفرك من كل ما تعلم، إنك أنت علام الغيوب. اللهم إنك تحكم بما تشاء وتفعل ما تريد، وأنت على كل شيء قدير، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. عليه توكلنا وإليه أنبنا وإليه المصير. اللهم إنا نسألك رحمة من عندك.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. استووا أقيموا صفوفكم وتراصوا. الله أكبر الله أكبر. الله الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده، ربنا ولك الحمد. وبدا لهم من الله ما لم يكونوا يحتسبون، وبدا لهم سيئات ما كسبوا، وحاق بهم ما كانوا به يستهزئون. فإذا مس الإنسان ضر دعانا، ثم إذا خولناه نعمة منا قال إنما أوتيته على علم، بل هي فتنة ولكن أكثرهم لا يعلمون. قد قالها الذين من قبلهم فما أغنى عنهم ما كانوا يكسبون، فأصابهم سيئات ما كسبوا، والذين ظلموا من هؤلاء سيصيبهم سيئات ما كسبوا وما هم بمعجزين. أولم يعلموا أن الله يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر، إن في ذلك لآيات أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم وأنيبوا إلى ربكم وأسلموا له من قبل أن يأتيكم العذاب ثم لا تنصرون واتبعوا أحسن ما أنزل إليكم من ربكم من قبل أن يأتيكم العذاب بغتة وأنتم لا تشعرون أن تقول نفس يا حسرة على ما فرطت في جنب الله وإن كنت لمن الساخرين أو تقول لو أن الله هداني لكنت من المتقين أو تقول حين ترى العذاب لو أن لي كرة فأكون من المحسنين بلى قد جاءتك آياتي فكذبت بها واستكبرت وكنت من الكافرين ويوم القيامة ترى الذين كذبوا على الله وجوههم مسودة أليس في جهنم مثوى للمتكبرين وينجي الله الذين اتقوا بمفازتهم لا يمسهم السوء ولا هم يحزنون الله خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل له مقاليد السماوات والأرض والذين كفروا بآيات الله أولئك هم الخاسرون قل أفغير الله تأمروني أعبد أيها الجاهلون ولقد أوحي إليك وإلى الذين من قبلك لئن أشركت ليحبطن عملك ولتكونن من الخاسرين بل الله فاعبد وكن من الشاكرين وما قدروا الله حق قدره والأرض جميعا قبضته يوم القيامة والسماوات مطويات بيمينه سبحانه وتعالى عما يشركون ونفخ في الصور فصعق من في السماوات ومن في الأرض إلا من شاء الله ثم نفخ فيه أخرى فإذا هم قيام ينظرون وأشرقت الأرض بنور ربها ووضع الكتاب وجيء بالنبيين والشهداء وقضي بينهم بالحق وهم لا يظلمون ووفيت كل نفس ما عملت وهو أعلم بما يفعلون وسيق الذين كفروا إلى
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى أصحابه أجمعين وعلى أهله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Inshallah, tonight we're going to try our best to finish off related to conjugating the present tense verb. I'm a little bit tired, but we only have a few pronouns to conjugate, inshallah, and we're going to finish the remaining conjugation, inshallah ta'ala. In this following lesson, or the previous lesson, from lesson 14 or the 14th lesson, we have went over some of the conjugation for the present tense verb, related to al-ghaib. Huwa yaf'alu, and I have written showing you that the ya represents huwa. Huma yaf'alani, and in huma yaf'alani, the ya plus the alif wa noon represents the dual ready to the mudhakkar. Huma, as I have written here, yaf'alani, showing you the pattern or the wazn and the construction of the conjugation of the present tense verb. It's not hard, it's very simple, and it's very easy. But I do my best, I'm trying my best to show you in the conjugation how the conjugation, the adding of letters in the actual conjugation represents that particular pronoun. That what you see in front of you right now is showing you what is the adding or ziyada fi dhalika wazn. What is the addition or the plus or the thing that is added in this particular wazn, in this particular pattern. Huma yaf'alani, the ya, the alif and the noon represents dual, and the ya represents mudhakkar. For two things that are masculine, dual, or something that is masculine and feminine. As I had taught my students in previous lessons, there is adab fi lugha arabiya, fi urfa arab. They have etiquettes, and the etiquettes in Arabic language, if there's a male and a female, that we use the masculine form of the conjugation or addressing that particular person. For example, I mentioned too, if you see a group of women and they have one boy, then we use the masculine form. This is so forth, same thing related to the conjugation, related to verbs. If I see a group of men and women, I'm not going to use hunna, I'm going to use hum. Same thing related to the conjugation. Inshallah, in the future, I will show you which they had introduced in the present tense verb in the book Arabic Made Easy, in the particular lesson related to the the past tense verb. And I believe in lesson for past tense verb and present tense verb, I believe they had added in the lesson some introducing, for example, if you have the verb is ismu fi'liya, or jumla fi'liya, jumla fi'liya, in the verbal sentence that we start the sentence with a verb. And for example, I can say in Arabic, fa'ala Muhammad wa Khalid wa Fatima al-wajib. So I said in this particular lesson, fa'ala Muhammad wa Fatima wa Khalid al-wajib, that Muhammad, Fatima, and Khalid did their homework. And I use it in this sense, in this text, in this verbal sentence, started with the verb. You notice I'm talking about plural. I'm talking about three people. I'm talking about two males and the female. I use the form of the verb for the singular masculine. We'll learn later on about this. If it's a verbal sentence and I'm talking about 2 or 3 person doing a thing, that's the past tense verb that I'm going to use. I use it in a singular form. If it was a non-verbal sentence, what we call Jamul Ismiya, for example, I want to say Khalid wa Muhammad wa Fatima fa'alu al-wajib or al-wajiba. That Muhammad, Khalid, and Fatima, that they did their homework, for example, right? That they did their homework. So you see in that conjugation of that particular verb that I conjugated a verb in this particular sentence, which is a normal sentence, not a verbal sentence, meaning the sentence does not serve a verb or the start of a noun. You notice it came after the verb, came after the noun, and I conjugated according to how many people in the particular sentence. We'll learn later on about this later on, but I want to make sure that all the students who's following this course, that they're able to conjugate all the verbs, that they are able to conjugate all the verbs for its right place, or conjugate verb for each particular pronoun. So the continuation, inshallah, with the conjugation of the verbs. So we did all the ghaib, and today we finish with al-qatib or al-hadir, al-muqatib or the hadir, which is considered to be the present tense. I'm sorry, the ones who you're speaking to, the one who is speaking to, the ones you are speaking to. So anta taf'alu. The ta here equals anta. Anta taf'alu. Antuma taf'alani. So the ta here, alif, and the noon, that's the addition to this particular pattern. It represents mudhakkar and muthanna, mudhakkar being masculine, and it's muthanna being dual, or it can represent mudhakkar and mu'annith. It can either mean 2 men or 2 women, or a man and a woman. Because we see now the conjugation for the feminine form, we also use antuma taf'alani. It's not like the past tense verb. Fa'ala, fa'ala, fa'alata. Fa'ala, fa'alata. But here, in this particular sentence, it is mudhakkar, and I should put mu'annith. That makes it easier. Let me just do something. A little bit editing. This thing is driving me crazy. So it could be the mudhakkar, or it could be mu'annith, or both. Mudhakkar, 2 men, a man and a woman, or 2 women. And this is the conjugation for that. And I will put a little star here to let the people know that it means both mudhakkar and mu'annith, so I don't have to write this 2 times. Antum. I really don't like writing sukun because in Arabic language, in Arabic language, the Arab usage of the Arabic language, they really do not write the sukun. If something doesn't have a vowel on it and the other letters have a vowel on it, that particular letter does not have a vowel on it. In most cases, it's a sukun. This is how it is in writing Arabic. Even when Arabs, they use vowels and stuff, if they don't write a sukun on a letter, then you know that it is sukun there. And sometimes they write it to give some type of emphasis for something. But most of the books, for example, that are written about Arabic language by non-Arabic speakers, you're going to find that they're writing sukun on everything that sukun needs to be. But you get custom in using Arabic language and reading books in Arabic, and even when they use the vowels, not related to Quran or Hadith, but related to any Arabic literature, and they happen to write vowels on it, and many times they do not write the sukun. So I'm not going to write the sukun on the letter. أنتم تفعلون. So the tie here, the wow, be dhamma with dhamma, and the noon here means antum. All right. So this addition of the letters. Means antum taf'aluna. This is the addition. What is added was ziyada ala fi'lu. Ziyada ala fi'lu. What is increased or added to the particular verb. That you're going to see the ta, the waw, taf'aluna, and dhamma. And the dhamma, taf'aluna. Right? This means that it is what? That it means antum. Antum. As I mentioned before, when you're looking at verbs and being conjugated, they're not going to write the pronoun most of the times with the conjugation. They're not going to write, for example, anta taf'alu. Taf'alu means there is anta. I don't have to say it. If I say taf'aluna, antum is there without me saying it. So I don't have to write it, neither do I have to say it. But some cases in Arabic language, when they want to make emphasis or tawqid, fi shay, if they want to make tawqid on something, then they will say it. For example, taf'alun antum. Huh? Taf'alun antum, for example. It's giving a little emphasis, but they will not use it or write it most of the times. They would just say the verb with its conjugation, and we don't use the pronoun. But we're using the pronoun so you can understand how to conjugate these verbs. No, let's keep on going back from English to Arabic. Anti. Taf'alina. Anti. Taf'alina. So the ta. the lam being kasra, and the ya and the noon be fatha, means equals anti. So the ta, the ya, and the noon represents anti. Ali, you're a little bit late with the question, but wait, you said don't conjugate the verb. That is conjugating the verb. If you say fa'ala Muhammad wa Khalid wa Zaydan wajiban, that is the conjugation. Fa'ala is the conjugation. Anything right in any verb is a conjugation. When you write fa'ala, yaf'alu, fa'alu, all that is a conjugation. So fa'ala Muhammadun wa Khalidun wa Zaydun wajiban, yes. But we're not there yet. This is related to Jamil Fitliya and how do you write Jamil Fitliya in the verbal sentence if the verb comes first, that we don't conjugate the verb according to the how many individuals are there related to the pronouns, right? How many people are there? We use the singular form. If I say, for example, fa'alat Khadija wa Fatima wajiban, right? Fa'alat Fatima wa Khadija wajiban, right? You notice it's two people, and it's still sentence. The past, the first verb, fa'alat, is still in the singular form, but it's feminine. Fa'alat Fatimatu wa Khadijatu wajiban, for example. They did the homework, right? So that's something else, but we're not going to focus too much on that right now. Anybody go study Arabic language, this is going to learn. We're going to learn about conjugating verbs and writing verbs and using verbs. You must know that, inshallah. So the dual and tuma is the same. Because I don't want to rewrite it, but I'm just going to just rewrite it because this is in case somebody asks, why you didn't write for the feminine? Here the thing is doing it again. SubhanAllah. Keep on going back to English. تفعلان. Right? I don't have to rewrite that. And tunna, the plural now. Now we're going to talk about, so antunna taf'alna. The ta and the noon represents the plural form for the feminine. All right, let me just add that in. Now I want to go over for ana متكلم ونحن متكلم for I. Did I do this first? Let me just go check. No, I should have done this first, but I didn't. We're going to do it now. Ana, I. أفعل. The aleph represents I, Anna. All right, the aleph represents equals I, Anna. نحن. نفعل. النون equals نحن. whether it's مذكر, whether it's مؤنث, whether it's جمع, مفرد, whether it's plural, singular, masculine, feminine, us. So these are the verbs conjugated. It's a little bit more detailed breakdown, but I did pass along in previous lessons. A sheet for conjugating verbs from a website. I will try to maybe add it later on to the note for this video in the comment section, and I might even add it to this note section in the book, inshallah. I just want to go through some of them, and I might go back and just edit this a little bit later on. I'm just a little bit tired right now. And I put some notes on the side. Af'alu khamsa. We go over this in the future. I just put it here for my notes. Inshallah, later on, we get a little bit finished. We finish more about conjugating verbs and weak letter verbs. Then we go later on about af'alu khamsa, or we just go over it, inshallah, if I get to go over al-awjurmiyya, inshallah. All right, so I'm going to save this real quick. I'll go back later on to publish it. To edit it, inshallah. Let me go fix this. I don't know why I got that smiley face in there. somewhere. Some space between this. Smiley face. Still got this smiley face. Oh, small. Let me just get rid of this thing. Where it's at. You know what? I just write Olive. Let's move this. That's probably the codes and stuff for the smiley face. All right, anybody have any questions? This is the time for the questions, inshallah. If anybody have any questions, this is the time for questions. So somebody posts a question, or I'd like to say, inshallah, that little bit about verbs, past tense and present tense verbs. The conjugation of verbs, and it's very important in Arabic, because later on, when we learn a little bit more about weak letters, weak letters that are in verbs, and verbs that are constructed on 2 letters or 4 letters. Some of the conjugations sometimes get a little bit more, appears to be difficulty, but they're not difficulty, it's just a pattern with them. I had demonstrated last week by showing you that some of the conjugation of certain verbs, that they have in this conjugation the middle radical being sometimes for the mudari being fata or kasra or dhamma. It's very important that when you study the Arabic language, that you become familiarized with a lot of different verbs and conjugating. If you look at the book, Arabic Made Easy, lesson 25, page 99. I didn't open the link today for the book because I know my computer was acting slow last week, and I don't know why it's acting slow. But the conjugation, if you memorize a lot of conjugation, for example, like the ones they give you here in the book, they give you at least 24 or less verbs conjugated. When you start memorizing a lot of verbs and the conjugation from past to present and this mastar, the grand, then you start seeing the patterns. You start seeing the patterns from conjugating the verb. If the present tense verb, the second radical is dhamma. For example, dakhala, yadkhulu, hadara, yahduru, dhakara, yudhakkuru. Now, dhakara, yadhkuru, arafa, ya'rifu, qata'a, yaqta'u, ba'atha, yab'athu, la'iba, yal'abu. What you should do is take these type of verbs that are conjugated for you, that are given to you, write them down and save them. So when you start using Arabic, it's already with you. It's already with you. You can memorize them, especially the ones they give you here. They're very common. They're very common. And you should memorize the mastar later on. We'll talk about maybe another lesson. We'll talk about the mastar, or maybe the next lesson, or maybe just tonight right now, since I got a good 15 minutes. The masdar is the grunt of the verb. For example, dakhala, yadkhulu, dukhulan. As I had told you before with verbs, that nouns are derivatives from verbs. Words are grafted out in Arabic language from the verb, the past tense verb. So we have many words. So this is called the grand, or the, what we consider in English language, the ing of a word. Some books translate the masdar, meaning verb minus the tense. I see really is the grunding, the grand, like in English, running, So it's similar to that, the masdar. And later on, inshallah, I will prepare a special letter explaining the masdar, even though it is explained in this lesson, in this book, about the grand. You should memorize the masdar and the conjugation of the verb. And it's very important. But the conjugation itself is more important. Also, with the conjugation of the verb and with the masdar, you will notice that the masdar is ending in the mansub case. The masdar is ending in the mansub case. If you look at the lesson in the book, the vocabulary words, dakhala yadkhulu dukhulan, or kharaja yakhruju khurujan. If you notice, it is ending, the masdar is ending in what? It is mansub. It doesn't mean that it's mansub every time you see it or use it. It does not mean that. But in the case that how it's written in the example, dakhala yadkhulu is the fa'il, is the fi'lu of the sentence. It is the fi'lu, and it's the fa'il also. Dakhala yadkhulu dukhulan. In Arabic language, the object of the sentence is always mansub. So the masdar here is fata and is mansub because it is the object of the sentence. The actual verb, dakhala and yadkhulu, these actual verb is the verb of the sentence and is also the subject. What is it? How is the subject? Well, what is the pronoun for the verb? Dakhala yadkhulu. It has a hidden pronoun. It is huwa, for example. It is huwa. That's the hidden pronoun. So that is the fa'il, the subject. And the object of the sentence always become mansub. So this is why the masdar is all written in the patterns and the mansub. When I'm using the masdar in the sentence, it doesn't mean that I'm going to write fata 10 at the end of the word. No. It doesn't mean that. I'm going to write it according to the conjugation or according to the i'rab of the sentence or according to how that particular masdar follows or falls in the sentence. If it's the case of majrur, if it's the case of marfu, this is how the ending vowel was written. But it's only written in these examples here because it's the object of the sentence. That's the only reason why. But when I use it and write it in a sentence and use it, I use it according to madal manasib لهذه كلمات. هنا في مثال المصدر ماذا مناسب للمصدر في الجملة. خروج Muhammad khuruj. Muhammad is leaving, all right? Or he's outside. Khuruj. Khuruj means a lot of meanings in Arabic. It means to fight, to rebel. It means to go outside. Khuruj, all right? And many people will say بعض النساء يحبن خروجا. Khurujan. Some women, they love to go outside. Khuruj. Go outside all the time. Some men, we say this. The women like to go outside all the time, right? Khuruj. So I use the verb according to how it falls in the sentence. I use the masdar according to how it falls in the sentence. If it's mansub, or if it's marfu, if it's majrur, like this. But in the memorizing the pattern, it's just written like that. But it's left for you to know. Also related to the masdar is important. The masdar could also be 2 different 3 words. Let's let you know that up front. The masdar could be 2 or 3 different words, could be a masdar. And this will you will learn by using a qamus, the dictionary, that has the masdar in the dictionary, and you will find and see these things. There are 2 or 3 different masdars, like there are 2 or 3 different verbs sometimes for a mafrad, for the singular of from the singular of a noun, the singular of a noun in Arabic, that you will find it having 2 or 3 different types of plurals, sometimes even 4 or 5 different types of plurals. And we can find that, for example, of the word sheikh. The word sheikh is plural, shuyukh, mashaykh. There's a lot of different plurals for the word sheikh. in Arabic language. But back to the master, sometimes the master could be 2 or 3 different words or different wordings for the master. Another note to mention related to the present tense verb, and I have mentioned this last class, is that the present tense verb is very important. Can somebody tell me why is the present tense verb very important to conjugation? Because it's important for something else in conjugation. And that probably will go over in next class, inshallah. Why is the present tense verb related to another type of conjugation related to the verbs? I mentioned this last weekend in class. Somebody please type out and let me know, and I will wait for the answer. Why is the present tense verb very important related to the conjugation of verbs for another type of conjugation related to verbs? No one knows. Good. The present tense verb is not good. It's actually bad. But the present tense verb is very important related to the commandment form of the verb. If you want to use the verb for the commandment, and the commandment verbs have its conjugation, inshallah, we will do that next weekend, inshallah. The conjugation for the commandment form of the verbs. It's very important and is related to the present tense verb. That will be lesson 27. The present tense verb is very important when it comes to the commandment form, because the commandment form takes some form of the present tense. For example, dakhala yadkhulu, right? I will add something for the commandment verb. Yadkhulu becomes commandment udkhul. Udkhul anta. Udkhulu. All right? Kharaja yakhruju. Ukhruj is a commandment form. Anta ukhruj. Or ukhruj anta. Dhahaba yadhabu. Idhahab. Dhahaba yadhabu. So the present tense form of the verb is very important. I'm sorry. Yes, the present tense form of the verb is very important. If you don't know how to conjugate the present tense of the verb, you will not know how to conjugate the commandment form of the verb. So this is very important lesson, the present tense verb and the past tense verb, and learning their conjugation, because they are going to be your foundation. Past conjugation for past tense verb and present tense verb is going to be your foundation for learning about a lot of other things related to conjugation, as sarf, wa tasrif, fi lugha Arabiya is going to be your foundation. Al-asl, al-qawaid or qaid is going to be your foundation for you to understand and to conjugate and other things related to verbs. And you notice that we looked in the book, majority of all the chapters in Arabic Made Easy, and the other book, Learning Arabic Language, the Quran, majority of the chapters are related to verbs. Majority of the chapters are related to verbs. So learn about the conjugation of the past tense and the present tense is going to be your foundation to everything else that you're going to learn about verbs, like weak verbs, weak letter verbs, verbs that have 2 letters, verbs that have 4 letters within it, and how to conjugate it. So these lessons, past tense, present tense, is a very important and going to be your foundation related to everything else related to verbs. How I conjugate commandment verbs. I have to know the present tense form. So I have to memorize the patterns and verbs so I'm able to conjugate them and use them. It's something that is very important for each student. All right, so to wrap up the class, wrap up the lesson, anybody have any questions, the time to ask. Back to Aliyah. I'm a little bit tired tonight, but I wasn't for sure. When I gave you the examples of fa'ala Muhammad, you always remember that when you use an Arabic language, which I make a special lesson for, when I say fa'ala Muhammad, in Arabic language, they use comma, but we must write al-waw, atf waw, the waw of atf. I forgot what it means in English grammar, but it means and. We always use the waw wa atf, right? Bringing something together, one part of the sentence, another part of the sentence, we use waw. So you cannot write in Arabic, Fa'ala Muhammad Khalid Zayd Wajiban. This is incorrect in Arabic language. You must use the waw wa atf, which means and. Fa'ala Muhammad wa Khalid wa Zayd, for example. We must use like this, inshallah, related to the conjugation of, the usage of certain words. As sometimes that you're going to find that in a sentence, if you don't add the wow, it means something else. But in this particular sentence, how you read it, you must use wow. And inshallah, I will find a lesson or make a lesson about using atf. Atf in Arabic language is called atf. And these are related to, I'm trying to think what atf mean in English. I forgot its meaning in English. But we'll learn about this, inshallah, later on. But if there's any questions, this is time for questions. Conjunctions. Barakallahu feek. Conjunctions. Barakallahu feek. I want to give some homework. The homework will be to take the lessons from the present tense verb. For example, kharaja, yakriju, dakala, yadkulu, وَدَخَلَ يَدْخُلُ خَرَجَ يَخْرُجُ حَضَرَ يَحْضُرُ. That you take the first one, the first row, which is دَخَلَ يَدْخُلُ, that first row, the first eight words, and you conjugate them from past, present, and use all the pronouns and conjugate them from past and present. Matter of fact, make the first three letters, because it might be a lot of writing for some people. But the first three rows, first the top and bottom and the one underneath, that you conjugate it with all the pronouns, past tense and present tense. And this would be the homework. And this is a lot of practice and good practice. I can remember myself when I was studying this particular book, Arabic Made Easy, a lot of the conjugation that I memorized it, but I had a problem using it and writing it. I knew all the conjugation. I could write them out, the patterns. When it came to time to speaking and using it, I had found out that I had problems with it. So I went away to school, a school in Egypt, and we had a basic lesson in the book Kitab al-Sasi, which the second book of Kitab al-Sasi. I'm sorry, the first book in Kitab al-Sasi, and we had a lesson in it. And that one day, in that one lesson, like in 1 hour, and all the conjugation to me is so easy, conjugated. Maybe I would take that lesson and use that lesson for us. But I see that it would sit well that you conjugate. Don't see how I conjugate it in the notes right here and I put little extra emphasis on certain things. No, I don't want you to do it like that. Just do it real simple. Like in the PDF format I gave you of the charts to conjugate the verbs, write it out just like that for the first three rows on the right-hand side. I mean, the first row, the first three letters on the first row, that you take the first three letters or words on the first row and you conjugate them past and present tense. This gives you a lot of good practice. A lot of writing, a lot of times is a lot of practice. It's good practice, writing and conjugating and using things like this. This give you, make you very well in memorizing the patterns, because the patterns are not hard. The patterns are not hard, and you should read them a lot. And everyone should be doing also reviewing from previous lessons, because now when we get to a certain level or certain stage in this particular book we are in, and you go somewhere else now and you use another curriculum like Arabic to Arabic language curriculum, you're going to see verbs conjugated. You're going to see these things. You're going to see working in sentence, and you should know. You not should, but you have to know the conjugations. You have to know pronouns. I found that some people, based on certain curriculum, that if the teacher or if the curriculum don't teach you how to conjugate according to all the pronouns, the teacher won't teach you. And I found some things like that before online in certain curriculum, because they would feel that you have some curriculum like Arabiya Baina Yadayik. Matter of fact, this is a good example. In Arabiya Baina Yadayik, you could go to the first two books and you still won't learn how to conjugate all the pronouns. All right. Yes, Sister Aliyah, yes. So you could go to, like, for example, Arabiya Baina Yadayik, and you don't know how to conjugate for the feminine form. I even seen that in an Arabic country, like a person go to Arabic school in an Arabic country and he's speaking and he doesn't know how to conjugate the pronouns or the verbs for the feminine form talking to women, because he don't talk to women or there's not in the lesson for that. So you should learn. You must. If you want to be a student of knowledge, you want to read the books, you want to read things, you want to read Quran and understand, you want to read books, the scholar, you want to hear the scholars speak, and you want to understand the scholar's speech, then you have to know these things. I can't, even today or listen to somebody send me some link, the Mufti in Egypt, who I don't take from, but he was talking about if the lahm, faraq في أوروبا وأمريكا حلال يجوز يأكل لحم ولحوم من فراخ في دولة في غرب. Right? It's talking about, can you eat Frag, poultry, fish. I mean, not poultry. Yeah, poultry. Chicken. Is because chicken and lahm is not the same. Because lahm really is meat. I think he was asking, can you eat the chicken and lahm, the meat of in Aruba or Europe and America and stuff like that, you know? I listen to the sheikh, and he even using the different conjugation of the verbs. I don't listen to a sheikh and you don't hear him using the conjugation of the verb, even in the feminine form sometimes. Especially when he's talking about women issues. The sheikh going to use the verbs according to the feminine form. Especially he's talking about women or women issues or things that are nouns that are feminine. He's going to use these type of conjugations. And you have to understand that. You have to know these conjugations. If you don't understand how to conjugate these verbs to these particular forms, you're not going to understand the kalam of the sheikh. You're not going to understand Quran. You know, you're not going to understand Quran. You won't be able. And so it's very important that you memorize these particular things, which is not hard. If you do something and you're consistent with it, it is not hard. All right, since I have seen no questions, inshallah, we're going to conclude the class. And the homework, and the sister written down, dakhala, dhahaba, kharaja, hadara, talaba, wa dhaqara. Yes, try to conjugate all of these verbs, or the first three, dakhala, dhahaba, kharaja, from past tense, all the pronouns, and present tense, all the pronouns. Like this. This is good practice. This is good practice to make a student strong. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وشهد وأنت واستغفر الله وتوب إليك. And please forgive me for any shortcomings.